This program is part of the Scene Project's podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Welcome into another episode of Real Biz. I am your host, Bubba Starts, and with me today from Imagination Hypnotherapy, Annie Damato. Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bubba, for having us.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Introduced to you by a good mutual friend, Eric Moraine, and everything that they have done for us. And he actually did my custom guitar strap that I have on there. So a big shout out to Matthew and his family. And yeah, we miss him here in South Dakota.
I bet. He's awesome.
Yeah, well, fantastic. I appreciate him making the connection for us here today. And before we get too far into everything you're doing with the hypnotherapy, I would love to hear a little bit of your and your husband's, backstory, how you kind of got into the field, and then we can pick it up from there.
Absolutely. So my partner, Scott Blaze, was the one that introduced me actually to the hypnotherapy. He had been practicing. He's been practicing for over 10 years. And when he approached me for it, or with it, I should say, with the business side of it, I found it rather interesting. I didn't know anything about hypnotherapy, but I've always been very open and consider myself very holistically minded. So it actually, I am a big person of faith, and it was kind of dropped to me at a moment of time that I didn't know I was going to need it. I had been going through some serious health issues at the time, and kind of had plateaued where I had progressed, but not 100%. I was probably about 70% better, but there was still that 30%, and we couldn't figure out what that 30% was, what was happening, what was going on. I had brain surgery. So my prognosis, I was supposed to recover in 3 weeks. That never happened. I was ill for about 2.5 years, went through a year physical therapy and all that. And, finally, when I started receiving the hypnotherapy, oh my gosh, I tell you, that to me was really, I guess, what I was needing. So obviously, there was something there in my subconscious mind that was, blocking me being able to fully recover. So that was my first, I would say, like my first, really, not only from the business side for, helping clients, but my first sense of, wow, there's really something else to this, So from there, I partnered into the business, helping Scott grow the business. And, it was like story after story. People would come in from all different walks of life, all different challenges. And, we would see them, a lot of them coming in after trying, many different modalities, being on many different prescriptions, and still not, being able to fully engage in their communities, being able to live a fulfilling life. And I was like, oh my gosh. But really, the biggest experience for me was when my son passed away. Obviously the grief that someone goes through when they experience something as traumatic as that. I can't even put it into words, but thankfully, hypnotherapy had been part of my life. And that's when I really was like, oh my gosh, if I have been able to overcome, and there's obviously, instances of grief, but if I have been able to overcome this huge loss and have been able to overcome me being able to overcome my illness, there is something definitely here that, we need to get this out to the world. So, one thing led to another. We created a foundation through we kind of fell into our lap as well. Someone came to us, a veteran that we assisted, and one thing led to another, where a few sessions later he was feeling better, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is a group of people who have been struggling for many, many years, right? A lot of them have been through many different tours within when they were in service, but after service, their body it doesn't go back to the same, right? Them being able to re-engage back in the community and society, they feel like they don't belong. They don't belong after service. They don't fit anywhere. A lot of them are suffering with hypervigilance, sleep disorders, PTSD, and many of them don't feel the relief. And unfortunately, like you had previously mentioned, many resort to, there is nothing else for me to do here in this world, and they take their lives. So to us, that is very sad. But on the other end, right, it's us having this tool, this ability to being able to offer something else, something that they can help them get unstuck, right? Being able to live a more fulfilled life, help them live a more purposeful life. So all those things, finding the strength within, because it's really, we don't do in hypnotherapy, right? It's not strength from the outside. We have that strength within, but the subconscious mind holds that, but the conscious mind is the gatekeeper.
It's very easy to get stuck in those loops inside of our mind and forget the infinite power that it holds. And I think that hypnotherapy offers a very unique window into how little we know about how the mind truly works, what the human is truly capable of. And you touched on something, especially with our veterans, Operation Combating Veteran Suicide being a large part of my life now as well, that the sense of community and the sense of purpose, and coming back from a unit where you are together every day with your brothers and sisters, often away from your home and your family, your wife, children, loved ones, that you form those strong bonds. And then those people are torn away from you when the tour is over, when your service is ended, and you are expected to somehow go back to a person that you will never be again. It's impossible. And I would think that for most people, you're changed just by basic training, right? Like it's not an instance of you have to have gone and done a tour and to be overseas or to be in war. You're a changed person. And for everyone in your previous life, be it your family members or loved ones, to expect you to not be a changed person can make you feel even more isolated and more alone inside of the world. And I think there's a lot of education, not just on the veteran side or, first responders. I think we can kind of put into that as well, that there needs to be more communication with the loved ones of these people about what the expectation should be for that person. That person is never going to be the same coming back as they were when they left. You're going to be changed by these experiences. And it's very hard for people who aren't a part of that,
right,
to really understand and to respect and appreciate all of the things that our veterans, our first responders go through, and or anyone who's been through a traumatic experience such as yourself. I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of your son and a brain surgery. Either one of those things would be the most traumatic thing for anyone, and you've had to deal with both of those. Was your son's passing away before the brain surgery?
No,
or after?
it was actually a few years after. So, you know, and the fact, I just want to take a step back because the fact that I am here, you know, talking to you after overcoming so many, and obviously, you know, there's a lot of other challenges, right, that I have thankfully been able to overcome and not just survive, but to thrive. To thrive. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are just surviving, that are just coping right now. You know, and here I am thriving, you know, helping others. And, you know, I believe that I am a true miracle, you know, that I'm here. And, you know, and I believe that there was a purpose for that. There was a purpose. There's a purpose that I am here. You know, my son, when he was alive, he suffered from anxiety. And, I learned a lot from that, from him. And what one of the things that I learned is that, you know what? It's not what they say, it's what they don't say. Because people suffer in silence when it comes to challenges, emotional challenges, right? When it comes to, you know, struggling, you know, with mental health, right? They suffer in silence, one, because of the stigma. You know, maybe so, you know, the way I feel with what I learned from my son is, you know, I hear you. I hear your silent cry. I hear you.
And I think that silent cry is deafening, when you can understand that. And it's something that, as um, many people who have not been through those traumatic experiences, they may never know. And, you know, talking about these things can be so powerful. You know, there's a reason that talk therapy and group therapy and these things, and sharing it, you know, whether it's in a group or a one-to-one with someone, can be so powerful. I think because of the digital era we live in, that people are so disconnected from one another, that it
Yes.
exacerbates the problem as well. People don't communicate face to face. I think there's a massive communication problem, but there's some things that you would never want to tell another human being. And I
Yes.
think especially for our veterans, for people who have maybe had to do things that they don't want to remember, that's where hypnotherapy can be a powerful, powerful tool, because it allows the conscious mind to get out of the way, and for
Mhm.
these subconscious feelings, and for them to be expressed, and to be expressed in a way that you don't need to be fully aware of them, and to get them out so that they can be expressed. I've seen, I'm a talker, if you can't tell, Annie,
Yes.
and I've seen a huge benefit to myself in having this podcast, because I'm able to tell these stories that I was holding, and stories that I was telling not just to myself but to others over and over and over again, and I wasn't allowing myself to accept things and to move on. And I've seen how much my podcast has been a help to me personally, to now leave those on the tape, and to walk away from them, and to not have to tell those stories anymore. And I think that's a powerful thing unto itself. It's a reason that with our housing units we'll be building with Operation Combating Veteran Suicide, that having a podcast studio inside of each one of these units is going to be so important for veterans to communicate with other veterans that have been through, you know, maybe not the same situations, but can understand the situations that each have been under. And things like hypnotherapy and having access to them is so important in this, you know, this mission that we hold very dear to our hearts, to reduce the 22 veterans a day that are taking their lives, by doing something about it, by being there for them, by seeing and hearing these individuals, by sharing their stories, if it's behind closed doors or onto a podcast where it can help other people. I think that giving them a purpose to help others is so critical, because getting out of the military and ending their service to their country, they feel like their purpose is over in life. And they find it very hard to move into civilian life and to just be another face in the crowd.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you know what? When that their uniform comes off, and their call is over, right? That weight is carried home, unfortunately.
And where it can start to express itself in a multitude of other things: substance abuse or physical abuse towards loved ones, emotional abuse, or the silence that we talked so much about today.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we develop as human beings, right? We develop these coping mechanisms and we resort to certain things, just as you said, right? Whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, that's just a short, very brief, let me try to manage what I'm feeling, right?
No, and as someone who has experienced substance abuse and has experienced, homelessness and in some degrees hopelessness, doing 2 years in prison, living for a year in Mexico on the run before prison, right? Like, I have put myself into some absolutely stressful and traumatic situations. I wasn't commanded to do those things. I definitely made my own choices in that,
Right.
but I understand what they've been through. I understand the institutionalization of someone who is in the military. Prison can be much in the same way, a very regimented and structured operation, and people who are very comfortable inside of that, once they're put back out into the world in something that isn't structured and can
Right.
be a bit chaotic, it starts to really become stressful and to make someone anxious and to change who they are as a person.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that I experienced after being sick for a while, as I had previously mentioned, and then, feeling better, one side, because there was a lot of brain fog, it had been brain surgery. So I underwent a lot of brain fog. But when I was finally feeling better and I looked around, it almost seemed like I had been in like a kind of like a time warp. Because I remember, like, I still had Christmas decorations. Um, and when I kind of like, was feeling better and I looked around, um, it was almost summer. It had been, just the end of spring. And here, a couple years later, I still had Christmas decorations up. And it was because I was ill and I wasn't able to, put things away and all that. So it almost seemed like I felt like, wow, society has moved on. And here I am. I felt like I was left behind, and it took me a little bit of time to reintegrate, that feeling. So I bet that's what a lot of people, who come back from service, right, who get out of jail, that may be what they feel when they come back home. It doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels like they were left behind somewhere, right? And the world has moved on.
No, and that can be a very isolating and an awful feeling to come back to. And I don't think that it's something that you can mentally prepare for, for veterans who go overseas, who have young children, to leave and come back. And now that child is, years older, especially with very young children. There's a lot of changes that happen. Having
Absolutely.
that child not be comfortable around you because they don't really know who you are, that can be very traumatic to a young parent. And I think that we need to, address the fact that a lot of these people are very young people that are going to war in their, early 20s or even yet teenagers. They aren't truly fully developed as human beings, both in the mental and the physical. So to expect them to take on so much is really tough. And obviously with the status of the, veteran affairs, and I know that there's some really great people in there on the ground that are doing great things. At the top of it, the bureaucracy and the systems are extremely broken, and we could be doing so much better for these, which I think is why you find yourself now working with the foundation you mentioned earlier, and doing the work that you're doing to bring these services to the veterans directly and making those things available. Are you able to share some more about the foundation and everything that you guys are doing with them and separately before I let you go today?
Absolutely. Yep. So our foundation is After the Action Healing Foundation, and it is a nonprofit foundation, that is dedicated to providing trauma-informed clinical hypnotherapy for veterans and retired law enforcement. So we exist for the moments after service ends, when that uniform comes off, when the call is over, and that weight is still carried home. Our mission is to offer safe, respectful path to healing that honors strength, protects dignity, and helps those who served reclaim their peace and control beyond survival. Our website is aftertheaction.org, and our phone number is 757-703-2236. And again, my name is Annie Damato, and my partner is Scott Blaze. And we have numerous other hypnotherapists as well, waiting to serve those in need. But we are also obviously, we also rely on, the support of the community to help. We do have, obviously, we do accept contributions, and we do have apparel that we also, sell to help provide the care that these veterans and retired law enforcement officers need to be able to live a more fulfilled, more happier life, reintegrated back into their community with their families, and moving forward.
Annie, it's been absolutely wonderful to meet you today, to learn more about imagination hypnotherapy and After the Action. I hope you can stick around for a few minutes with me after the show, and we can talk some more about how we can all work together with Operation Combating Veteran Suicide and the Scene projects and After the Action to do more to help our veterans and first responders in their darkest moments and to return to the light.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the listeners. And we're here to help any way we can. Thank you.
Annie, thank you for spending some time with me today. And thank you for being part of the Scene.
My pleasure.
Imagine capturing the raw essence of nature, with its infinite color and beauty. Now, envision turning that into something truly transformative. Pure and easy tea cultivates the goodness of nature's bounty into fuel for your body. We are what we drink. Pure and easy tea, the pure nourishment your body craves.